doing that, but I love the idea that we can introduce movement and have people, again, approach it in their own way, and hopefully, be able to find something that they're like, yeah, this really works for me. And, because really it's about just, like you both expressed, finding the freedom, right? Finding that present moment awareness where it's spacious and you can breathe and you can move your body and it just feels good, right? It feels good. It adds to our experience of being a human, right?
Yeah.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce III.
And Liz McKean.
And how's your energy today, Liz? Like I didn't already ask you before. Like this is like the fourth take.
We have no chill when it comes to like not pulling back the curtain. Like, hey, guess what? We've done this 3 times.
Nah.
No, energy is great. Just as full of gratitude now to be on this on the microphone with you as I was.
As you were the first 12 takes.
Practice makes perfect. How about you? How's your energy?
I'm good. My energy is great. I'm excited about this episode. And let's not take any more advantage of our guests' patience today. Who do we have?
We do have the world's most patient and kind guest. We have today Payton Kennedy, comes to us from the She Recovers Foundation, which we're going to hear a lot about today. And I'm so excited, but also to learn more about her. Payton is a creator and trainer of She Recovers Dance. She is a life and recovery coach, a trauma-informed yoga teacher and dance facilitator, and an events lead for the She Recovers Foundation. So we are going to hear about that and about her. And we're just grateful to her for all the reasons, the patience, and just for all the work that you do in the world. So, well, Payton,
Welcome, Payton.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you both.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We have been looking forward to this episode for a while, and I know that She Recovers and the Phoenix have been partners, and there's bigger things that have been in conversation. But just on a very personal note, I have followed She Recovers since I think early recovery / when I was just thinking, how the heck am I ever going to do this? It was one of those websites, and some of the founders were people that I would read their writing and just feel like maybe there's hope, and there's just this community out there that if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. So that was really exciting to be able to connect in this way now. So yeah. We're really, really thrilled. And we'd love to hear a little bit about you and your story. I know we're definitely going to get into the work that you do, but as far as your story, I think that you said that you do identify as a person who's in recovery. Is that right?
I do. So, I'm just going to start at the beginning.
Go for it.
I'm Payton. My pronouns are she, her, and I am coming to you today from a very icy Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. We just had an ice storm. Yes. And these are the traditional lands of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe people. So I just want to shout out to them. I'm grateful to live and work and play here. And yes, I am in long-term recovery from substance use. I would say, my journey also involves, looking at codependency and perfectionism and relinquishment trauma. I'm an adoptee, so that's certainly been part of my journey as well. And I've been on this journey for about 10 years now. It's changed my life, and I'm just so grateful for recovery and for all of the experiences and the people that it's brought into my life. So I can't quite imagine, that when that fork in the road came, I'm certainly glad that I chose the path that I did, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think Laura McGowan is someone that has been on the She Recovers radar and at some events and just involved in many ways. But one of the things, she's a writer, and one of the things she says, and I think her book is titled this, is "We Are the Lucky Ones." And
Yes.
I just could not agree more. And I think that's one of those things that when you're not quite, when early recovery, and sometimes when you're just thinking about it, I can feel like, how dare you even say that? Like, this is the unluckiest I could ever be, But when you get here and start to realize the community around you and all the things that you were able to gain, it's incredible.
Liz, I got a question. Because all of this is new to me. And so you said that, were you aware of She Recovers before you decided to pursue your own personal recovery, or was that something that when you were new in recovery that you because you've mentioned a couple of times on this podcast where it's like, I was eyeing these influencers on Instagram, but I wouldn't even want people to know that I was following them because, they don't need to know that I'm interested in like seeking something like this, right? So what was your experience like tapping into this platform, and like what stage of your recovery was that?
I wish I had a clear enough memory to even know exactly, but it definitely was during the years of, all right, the rational part of my brain knows that this is a really big problem, and I just keep burning down my life. The still very addicted part of my brain is like, nope, we can definitely make this work. And then some in between part is every single day Googling, am I an alcoholic? And how to get help, how to get help and have nobody find out, like things like that. And just at some point, I'm sure I Googled something about being a woman and having this experience, and She Recovers came up. And the founders are people who also are yoga teachers. Yoga was a big part of my journey from early on. So I followed them, and it's just amidst all that, just kind of gathering of evidence of whether this was a path that I even could go down, and part of the reason I was able to.
So when you hear a story like that, Payton, in the specific context of like how you've shown up and how you've been able to share your own personal recovery, like how does that make you feel? And do you hear stories like that a lot, or what's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I do hear stories like that. And of course, Liz, I did the same thing. I think for me, I remember listening to Ann Dowsett Johnson, who wrote a book called Drink. She's quite a popular member of our community, and, just the ears perking up. And, again, at that point, nobody knew that I was, contemplating my drinking. So, and I know that, having been a member of She Recovers and working with women in recovery, like most women, I've heard it a lot. They go on, they Google all the things, and somehow, they find She Recovers. And of course, these days, it's probably a lot easier to find She Recovers than it was back then, because She Recovers started out, Dawn Nickel, who's one of the co-founders, started to write a blog. And that's what she was doing. She was writing a blog. And, Tara and her daughter showed her how to create a Facebook page one day. And then they thought, we're going to do a retreat, because we seem to have a lot of women that are really interested in, what we're doing and that would like to come on a retreat. And it started so organically. And I like that idea that, again, we come to this point in our lives where we're like, this isn't working. And we start to look for, well, what is going to work? Like you said, the evidence. So I love that, that's been the path for many women that have been seeking recovery and that have found us. So yeah, it's amazing to be a part of it, right?
Sure is. Yeah. I think those blogs, I remember, were a really big thing for me. And, even the Phoenix, when I came across the Phoenix, when we're part of these kind of organizations and we get into the recovery work, we think so big, and like about the growth and all the different facets. But really, I mean, the amount of people who find the Phoenix just because they've seen Scott Strode's TED Talk, which was very many years ago, but that's just the thing that comes up on Google, and the amount of She Recovers women that I came across because I Googled and I came, about one article, and that one article sent me in a direction that I never would have gone, in any other scenario. And it's just those little things. It's just those little breadcrumbs that we're all just following and, finding our own adventure along this path. So it's a wild ride, and it's different for every single person. And that's really cool. And that's something that I think is really interesting about She Recovers. When I've just looked more recently at some of the things on your website and on your social media, is that you really encourage that is, create your own path, and everyone's got, different needs, and how can you find your way? I know volunteering is part of your organization, which allows people to be part of that. So what does your path look like as far as your work with the organization, and then how that relates to just how you take care of yourself outside of the work?
Well, that was one of the things that I think when I didn't find She Recovers in the typical way. I was brought together by another friend in recovery to do our first event. So when I got to know She Recovers, and when I, looked at the intentions and guiding principles of the organization, that was the one thing that I really admired, was that the idea that we get to create our own pathway, patchwork of recovery. Mm-hmm. I started my recovery in 12-step, which served me very well. That's how I got sober. That's, the foundation, one of the layers of the foundation of my recovery. But when I joined the She Recovers movement, I realized, wow, there's so much. And it's actually what brought me back to movement, to holistic movement. And very early on, I realized that's going to be a part of my patchwork as well. And, now in our community, there's, it's like, again, there's movement, there's art, there's storytelling, there's, recovering with pets, there's just so much. And I think that, like you said, we're all different. We all need different things. We all want different things. And I love that we can explore all of that, respect that in our community, inclusion, access, the encouragement to be exactly who you are, as you are worthy, you're accepted. I mean, I just think that creates a really beautiful space for people to do the work in however they want to do it. So, I have a very patchwork, and it's changed over the years, right? I mean, I started out, again, with 12-step and a lot of yoga. Yoga really helped me. And, over the years, things have shifted, and, I've explored things and went, not so much. And I'm sure there's more of that. And I think that's a healthy recovery journey in my mind. That mirrors life, right? To allow ourselves to change and grow, and, say yes and say no, and feel like it's okay that we're doing that and we still belong. So, yeah.
That feels like yoga to me. Like I know we're both yoga teachers, and when I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when I teach a yoga class, like never is it my goal to get somebody into the, a pretzel or on your head or, whatever. Like the pose is just a shape, the idea is for you to find your path. Like what is yoga to you today? Like, what do you need in that today? And then starting to trust yourself to be able to know that, and change your mind if you get into a position that it's not where you want to be, pivoting if you need to, like becoming a person that your body can trust to take care of it in that way. So that's really beautiful, because then you take that off the mat and are able to do exactly that. Exactly what you said.
Absolutely.
When you talk about plotting out your own path in recovery, or even the inclusivity of the community, and I mean, this is a question that may be for both of you all. Have you experienced things that, like being a woman, may stand out as different from somebody who has not had that experience, who is not a woman? And I'm super curious, just because like I'm always curious about like the different perspectives and like the different pathways that everybody took to get to where they are. But especially because, working with She Recovers and working specifically with women, are there some unique obstacles and challenges that you all come across when pursuing recovery?
That's a great question. A couple of things just kind of popped into my mind. I mean, in my own experience, again, coming, doing sort of 12-step recovery, walked in, the first day of my sobriety, walked into a meeting that was pretty much full of middle-aged men.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the meeting that I was like, doesn't matter, I'm staying, and I did stay, and it was, a couple of times a week, and I got to know, a group of people there. Now, I would say that I did feel like I wasn't truly, I would say, maybe I didn't have that true sense of belonging until I became immersed in the She Recovers community and started, doing events and retreats and spending time with women in recovery. There's a lot to learn about, being a woman in recovery, recovering with women. I hear it a lot that, I've heard this so many times, in a sharing circle where women say, I never used to like women.
Mm.
Which is just, it's kind of like a, whew.
That's interesting.
But that's the experience of a lot of women. And until, they come into a space where they feel supported and welcomed and like they can speak their truth, recovery can be difficult. I think it can be difficult for people that, underserved populations. I think it can be difficult for, BIPOC people. And, this is I think the pretty amazing thing right now that's happening in recovery is that we're starting to learn, we're starting to understand that, some pathways of recovery do have a lot of privilege attached to them. And I think, in my experience in the She Recovers community, and especially the last few years, it's been a journey of growth. And that is certainly, for the organization and in the community, but also personally understanding that recovery is for everybody. And we're all recovering from something. That's another one of our intentions and guiding principles. And, at the end of the day, every woman, every man, every, non-gendered person, everybody deserves recovery. And I love, one of the messages out front in the She Recovers community right now is that we welcome all women. We welcome, transgender, non-binary people. We are trying to serve underserved populations because we've seen what's happened to women in recovery in a supportive, in a welcoming space. And so that magic, that beautiful healing, that sense of community and connection, everybody, more people need that. Maybe gotten off on a bit of a tangent, but I feel, being with women is wonderful. It's obviously, as a woman, there's a lot of healing. There's a lot of, expansion, and there's a lot of beautiful friendships and connections that can be made. The icing on the cake here for me is to be in a community that's responsive to what's going on in the world. And that even when it's hard and difficult, even when it feels like, oh, I don't know what to do with this, or I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm afraid I'm going to make mistakes, moving through that, it feels like I'm not only part of a beautiful recovering community, but part of a community that's changing the way that we live in the world and how we relate to each other. Maybe one day, and I'm sure we've talked about this, not instead of, but maybe in addition, it's we recover, or, he recovers, right? Like, I mean, they recover, right? It's, So there's lots of medicine and lots of like learning and growth in that idea of being a woman in recovery. Absolutely. I don't know, sometimes I feel like I've gained so much there, and now I'm just moving to just the human, right? A human recovery.
I think that's really powerful.
Such is the seasons of our evolution, and I think a lot of times, we've heard so many stories and we've shared our stories so many different times that it's almost indicative in the telling of our story that, like at this point in my recovery, like I needed to be this, or I identified in this way, or I needed this more. But now, like in hindsight, like I see where I'm at and I need a little bit more of this. And I think that journey is one that isn't linear always. And when we open up to it and we open up to having that conversation with ourselves in a compassionate manner, like we allow for our growth however it shows up versus having to direct it, if that makes sense. And that is like, like the saying, you can't open a rose with a sledgehammer. So it's like, maybe I want to bloom in this way, but maybe right now I'm being called to bloom in this way. And it's like, can I sit back and allow for it and have compassion for this process? And what does that look like for me? And how can I show up and fertilize where I'm at today? And one piece of fertilizer that I hear from your story that I'm super interested in is the dance aspect. Like can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I like to dance. I don't necessarily know if I like can dance, but I do be dancing though, So what role did dance play in your personal recovery, and how does that play a role in how you show up and create events for She Recovers?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to say to you, because so many people say to me, as soon as they find out, that I'm, creator of this modality or I'm a dancer, they're like, oh, I can't really dance. And I beg to differ. I think you have a body and you can move that body, so you can dance. And maybe we don't even call it dance. Maybe we just call it move or groove or whatever we want to call it. I do have a dance background and movement has been a part of my life. I've been a mover. I'm somebody that doesn't necessarily, I can better at sitting still these days than I used to be. But, I was a dancer and a gymnast as a young person, and somewhere in my early 20s, mid 20s, stopped, kind of made a detour into music, stopped dancing. There was a lot of club dancing, of course, during that phase of my life. In recovery, I'm a huge music fan, so that never stopped. But in recovery, I think I was doing a lot of yoga in my early recovery. One night, I was just like, I'm not going out to the clubs anymore as a sober person. And again, that was early in my recovery, so I wouldn't have dared then. But I just decided to put on some music and dance, and had kind of a spiritual experience doing that. And so that became a part of what I did, And again, at that early stage in my recovery, it's like, I had all this space, and what am I going to fill my time and my space with now? So, obviously yoga and dance became a part of that. And it was literally a thing of, putting in my earbuds and cranking it up and just dancing like there was no tomorrow. It's very cathartic. And that just led to, at that time, I was working in She Recovers. We were starting to do events. And, I always had that thought in the back of my mind that we really need to dance. We just need to dance. It took a while to make that happen. It was actually in Los Angeles, our She Recovers in LA event. I was determined that we were going to dance. We tried to do it in New York, first event, too much, couldn't make it happen. But LA, we decided, I was just adamant about we need to dance. So we had a silent disco there. So the silent disco, of course, is the one you put the headphones on. Yeah, it was perfect, right? We were out in the Wilshire Gardens of the Beverly Hilton Hotel. So we couldn't make noise. So we were like, silent headphones.
So cool.
And I was very nervous about it. Everyone was like, what the hell is a silent disco? And, a lot of poo-pooing going on in our groups about it. And, we'd never done it before. We had this dinner and, we're in our dresses and I'm running to the Wilshire Gardens, Dara, my co-producer, and, getting all this stuff set up. And I'm kind of freaking out because, the DJ and the tech guy can't quite get their act together. And I'm still in a dress. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run upstairs. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to come back down. And I was just on my way back down in the elevator, like just praying, please, please let this be working. And I walked into the Wilshire Garden, and the DJ, there was probably, 200-ish women there, all with their headphones, all of them like lighting up in different colors. People were just like like it was just the energy in that space was just unreal. And we danced and laughed and cried, and people were like doing pyramids, like it was just amazing. It was the most amazing energy. And after that night, I was like, okay, that just shows me that we need this as a regular modality. And, I had women coming up to me saying first of all, that was the first time I ever danced sober. And, secondly, that was the happiest moment of my life. So again, this idea of movement as a way to release and a way to process and a way to be in community, in connection with people. It was just so powerful. So, that led me to create She Recovers Dance, which is, a guided movement modality where you come and you dance your own dance. And, I will guide you. I'll, maybe lead people through a warm up and cues, and we do a bunch of somatic kind of movements, and a little bit of, sometimes I throw a little bit of yoga in there, but it's really about finding your own movement and exploring movement, accepting yourself, your body, your movement exactly as it is, because that's where the medicine is. It's not about choreography or, following along or being a good dancer. It's not about that. It's about your body, your movement, and your exploration of that. So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
gotta
fun.
say too, when it comes to dance, I'm a music lover as well. I thought that was one of the things that I would lose in sobriety, but come to find out, that was one of the things that like amplified. But movement, there's been, I think the first time I went to a show and really danced, there's this group called Krumbin. Maybe some people know who I'm talking about. Everybody's heard of Krumbin song. They probably just don't know that they've heard of Krumbin song. But I went, and it's like, it's like a kind of a jam band, and they got the song You and I, and they played it like 3 times in a row. And it's like, it's always a certain point when I'm dancing that I just, especially like in a supportive environment, because that was one of those shows, like, didn't nobody care what they looked like, didn't nobody care who they was with. They're getting outside of their circles and going to other circles and just dancing. And there's always this point that I hit where like I lose that thing that's like, okay, make sure you're doing it in a cool way though. Like don't do it to where people are probably going to be looking at you. Like that voice goes away, and it's like, oh, we gonna do it. Like, and you just start moving and grooving. And even going out to Milwaukee with Byron and them in the chapter of Milwaukee and doing Zumba. Like Zumba is fun to me because it's like I'm not super excited about exercising, but I will dance. And then at the end of the day, you'll see you're sweating and, everybody's laughing and high-fiving and nobody cares how they look. And I think dance is super potentially spiritual.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I remember I used to only like going to weddings because of the open bar. And, even though they all ended horribly. And then the first few weddings the first wedding I had to go to sober, I was just like, what am I going to do? Because usually I would dance. Usually I would throw my shoes off. I'm sure, I would probably ruin the experience for everybody else by dropping a drink on the dance floor or something. But I just thought I was having a great time. And I was sure I couldn't do that if I was sober, just exactly like you're saying, Bryce. And I just was like, oh, this is more fun. This is way more fun. And, whatever I thought clicked when I finally had a drink that allowed me to do it, actually, just like you said, like clicks when you're doing it sober in a different way. And it's like worldly and allows you to feel good in your body. And I think, that's something I know that is a human experience, but I think women at least talk about it more in our relationship with our bodies. And in recovery, you're forced to have to just sit with that, like all the big feelings, and so to have those experiences where you do not only feel safe in your body, but safe enough to move around and in front of other people and just let go it is spiritual. It is like something that it's more evidence that you are free in a way that you never thought you could be. So, well, we're going to have to come to your dance classes, Payton. That sounds so fun.
Yes. Well, and, the wonderful thing is that, of course, I developed this in 2019 and we were still doing live events back then. So I was doing it at retreats and events. And then, of course, the pandemic came and, the obvious choice was let's get this online. So every Sunday, since the pandemic hit, we would host She Recovers Dance along with yoga and our other gatherings. And I did it by myself for the first, I guess, 2.5 years. And then this past year, we decided to bring it into the fold of, for one of our certification programs. So we've created the She Recovers Trauma-Informed Dance Facilitator Program. And I just trained, I mentored our first facilitator because she had quite a bit of mindful, she did the dancing mindfulness training, which is one of the trainings I did as well. But we now have 8 of us altogether. So 8 facilitators of this program, all very different with different experiences. So I developed a training where I trained, there's 8 facilitators now who are hosting She Recovers Dance every Sunday. Taking turns hosting. And it's amazing because they're all different. They come at this with a different, obviously different experiences, different ways of offering, this program to people. It's just kind of blown open the doors. It's, and we're going to be doing more of that. We've now onboarded a trusted advisor of embodiment and movement, into our organization. Her name is Erica Hornthal, and she's called the therapist that moves you. So she's a dance therapist, and we're going to be offering sort of more opportunities for movement and dance and yoga. Of course, I love, but again, that idea that movement doesn't have to be just that. There's all different ways that we can move our bodies and different ways to approach movement. So, I'm one of those people who I will act silly and look stupid and, run around and, shake and do all that stuff. And I'm for me, that's just fun. And, I don't have a problem doing that, but I love the idea that we can introduce movement and have people, again, approach it in their own way and hopefully, be able to find something that they're like, yeah, this really works for me. And, because really it's about just, like you both expressed, finding the freedom, right? Finding that present moment awareness where it's spacious and you can breathe and you can move your body and it just feels good, right? It feels good. It adds to our experience of being a human, right?
Yeah. Which is the whole point of recovery, right? Recovery is not just stopping doing a thing, stopping using a thing or a certain behavior. It's so much more. It's such a bigger deal in all the best ways. I feel like one of the reasons we do this podcast is because we have found, and Bryce and I have talked about this a little bit, about like with the Phoenix as a community and as an organization, can be hard to give like an elevator pitch about. It's hard to really like wrap your head around what it is. Is it classes? Is it is it online? Is it in person? Like, is it a building? Is it a modality? Like all these things. And the answer is just yes to all those things. It's like, how can we bring people together? Yes, that is it. And a safe and supportive way. And I feel like that's something we have so in common with She Recovers, and the way we are able to help people to understand what it is by showing them instead of just trying to tell them, and showing them is like with these stories. And the very fact that the stories are so different shows that, actually you don't need to figure out what the Phoenix is or what She Recovers is. You need to figure out, what you want it to be, what you need it to be, what it is for you. Like, what is your experience of it? So thank you for helping us to do that, to paint that picture in that way. And even with all that said, is there any kind of like container you want to put around like what She Recovers is for folks who have been listening this long and maybe are trying to still kind of like put their finger on what it is?
I would say first and foremost, it's a community. It's a community. It's also a place where you can find, resources. Obviously, since the pandemic hit, we had to pivot ourselves, and our online community and the resources that are there at no cost, many of them at no cost. That's an amazing place for women and non-binary folks to enter into the community. We also have a meeting on In the Rooms, and a lot of people find us on that platform, and then that's kind of a gateway into our platform and what we do. But yeah, community, resources, a place to connect, a place to learn. We've got not only our trauma-informed yoga and dance, but we host what we call Mental Health Monday workshops once a month, where we have a variety of speakers come on and talk about not just recovery from addiction, but mental health challenges and things that we all, may encounter, not only as our own experience, but maybe with people around us. So there's a lot of learning that can happen through our organization. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's a community. I know in, my own experience and just, talking with, other women, that when we first enter recovery, it can be a pretty friggin' lonely place, right? I mean, I didn't tell anybody. I worked in events in culinary, so high-end, wine and food. I didn't tell a soul I was sober. And I had, I went 12 steps, so I had that community, but I had no other community, and I wasn't running around advertising for one, right? So again, getting on the Google and finding that. And, certainly there are so many amazing recovery communities out there now. I mean, even in the 10 years that I've been on this journey, there's so much more than there used to be. She Recovers can be a bit of a hub, a bit of an umbrella. We're connected to so many different communities as well. There's just a lot there for people. I think the connection that, the idea that you can come into a space and be reminded that you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a whole bunch of people who are recovering, and we're all different. And yet there's that thread that we all, it's woven, through all of us, right? Of we're here, we're recovering, we're healing, we're on a path that's going to serve us, not on a path that's going to be a destructive one. That's a good, obviously a good place to be, right?
So good. Gosh, I just had, we live in metaphors on this podcast, and I just had a vision of the silent disco, and like that community, that hub is the music. We all have those headphones on. It's like safe. We all have that beat, that's going on in our head, but we get to do whatever the heck we want with it. You move your way through it. You
So
jump up and down,
joy.
you sit down and just close your eyes, you spin in circles, like cartwheels, like whatever is going to work for you. But that, we've all got that music, and, look at somebody, and even if you can't hear their music, that's happening for them too. And, smile and high five and do a little spin together. And that's what we're doing in this recovery community.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such joy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Liz spitting bars today.
Coming in hot with the metaphors. What can I say?
So as we bring this thing to a wrap up, I think it would serve us to ask the question, Liz.
I think it would too. Yeah. Well, Payton, if you would be so kind, we like to end our episodes with a question that we ask each guest without any right or wrong way to answer. And that is for you personally, if you could reach back in time and send some words to a previous version of yourself, what might those words be?
I think they would be to be brave and reach out for help, right? Just reach your hand out. Somebody will be there, Yeah. Just, and I know it takes a lot of courage took courage for me to do that. And I see others, it takes a lot of courage to say, I need help and please help me. But boy, when you do that, you really, you open the doors for help, for healing, for recovery.
Yeah. It's so important that you said that it's brave too, because I think that's a thing that you realize after the fact. In the moment, sometimes you feel like this is weakness, this is giving up, this is like me not being able to do it the way I should, and then looking back, it's like, no, that was the bravest thing that you could have done, like to raise your hand and say, I'm ready to ask for help. Like, man, Herculean is the kind of strength that takes. So anybody who's considering doing that or is doing that, like, you are amazing. So brave.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Well, Payton, we are going to link. I know you already gave us a few places to send people, but if there's anything you would like to just shout out here that folks can find more about you and about She Recovers, where might be a place for them to start, knowing that they also can just go into the show notes and click away.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sherecovers.org is the organization. I show up mostly in social media on Instagram, and I always love to connect with anybody, people in recovery. And my Instagram is expand.beyond.recovery. So you can find me on Instagram. And the one last thing that I would love to just share is that the She Recovers Foundation is doing another large event. This is our big one in Chicago at the end of September. And I know the Phoenix is going to be joining us there. And that's a pretty amazing event. It's big. It's not a little retreat. It's a big event. We've got Liz Gilbert, who's headlining. Yeah, among other amazing presenters. And the theme of our conference this year is Our Stories, Our Strength. So it's going to all be focused around telling our story, expressing our stories, our truth. So that's pretty exciting. It's going to be an amazing event. All of that information is on our website as well. So if that's of interest, if you want to gather with 600 others, other women in recovery in Chicago, that's where we'll be.
Yes, thank you for shouting that out. We definitely wanted to have that in there, and we'll link that as well. And I just have to say that I am just such a fan of Liz Gilbert. My gosh, I am not even ashamed to say that Eat, Pray, Love changed my whole life, and I read it probably every single year, even now, however many decades later. So that is just so cool that she's going to be there too.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
She's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's meant so much to have you here and to have this conversation, and just to be in, partnership with our organizations is so cool. Yeah. Just part of this movement that we're also lucky to be part of. And thank you for your patience with our technology. You are definitely a saint.
Recovery in action, Payton.
Well,
recovery in action.
There you go.
Sure is. And thank you to everybody who is listening. We just could not be more grateful for all of you, and would be even more grateful if you would be so kind as to share this episode, to subscribe, to leave us a review. It helps other people to find us, and definitely to connect with us. How do they do that, Bryce?
Well, how they do that is they go on eBay and they buy a BlackBerry from 2003 and they dial
I
in
think
the
you've done
number.
the BlackBerry one before. I think.
Don't stop me. How you really do it is you go on the App Store, the Google Play Store, and download the Phoenix app. If you don't have the Phoenix app on your phone, what are you doing? We need you to have that app. Download that app so you can have access to this community. Tons of different programs that you could attend. All of our programming is free to anybody with just 48 hours of sobriety. And there's updates coming on to that app every day that's making it cooler and cooler every day. And a part or a feature of that app is the community groups. They have Pets of the Phoenix. They have Plants in Recovery. They have the Detroit group, which is the best group on the whole entire app. But the second best group is the Rise, Recover, Live podcast group. Hop in there. Come holler at me and Liz. Hopefully Payton will be on there soon, if not, or on there already. Absolutely. And come tell us what you enjoyed about this episode, what you enjoy about the show, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Come engage with us. We'll be there and we'll see you in there. Remember, download the Phoenix app, hop in the community group, the Rise, Recover, Live community group, and come talk to us.
That's right. Well, we did it against all technology odds. So thank you again. Thank you, Payton. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, listeners. We adore you, and we will see you next time.
Catch you later.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.